Do we have any questions or comments? Was that clear?
Do we have some real estate people here who could address that?
Has anybody ever served on the appraisal review board? Well, tell us, Mr. Gregory.
I think what limited the number of people or the ones that can serve is the state legislature when they required you could not serve on it but 2 terms. I suppose that's still in effect. We never had a problem having good members on the board, but when they ruled that you could not serve but 2 terms, you went off. And then you had to skip a while. Bill Watson and I served for 6 years, I guess. I 6.
We're going for 7.
I think I was the last member on it after all those years. But I don't think I would want to go to another county to serve on theirs. It was, you knew a lot of the people that came before you. Not that that made a difference in what the outlook you took on their property, but you did know them and they knew you, and I think they were better pleased knowing that.
I think this is targeting some counties out west who barely have enough for a police force. And they just don't have people to serve in all the appraisal district offices. And I think this is targeted primarily not to counties like us, but way out in West Texas.
As I understand it, it's not for appraisal districts, it's for the equalization board that hears tax complaints. So 2 counties couldn't necessarily go together to have the same appraiser, but they could go together to have the same equalization board that hears the complaints about your taxes. And I think Bill's right. It is directed at rural counties in the Panhandle and far West Texas where there may not be a couple of hundred people in the county, and there's just not people there that feel like they're qualified to serve on the review board, but yet there has to be somebody.
I imagine some of those little counties, the tax appraiser has to serve as the appraisal review board, and that doesn't go over too well.
Any other questions or comments about Prop 5? Okay, Proposition 6. The constitutional amendment authorizing the Veterans Land Board to issue general obligation bonds in amounts equal to or less than amounts previously authorized. The pro is it corrects an oversight of the, let's see, we're in 6, I'm sorry. It secures uninterrupted bonding authority to the Veteran Land Board before the current fund is exhausted. And the VLB would likely never again need to seek assistance to fund the Veterans Housing Assistance and Veterans Land Programs, which would make funding more stable and efficient. Those who are opposed say authorizing this state-backed bond would expand state debt. Only previously authorized bonds that have been retired as of this year should be applied to this proposition. Bonds to be retired in the future should have to be approved by voters before they are reauthorized as state debt. So the concerns are it would increase state debt at a time when we don't have the money to pay for it. Any questions or comments? No questions? No comments? Clint, are you finding anything else there? I'm looking at 3 different evaluations, and I'm seeing basically the same thing. The main opposition is the possibility of raising debt. Okay. If we have no more questions about 6, let's move to 7. The constitutional amendment to allow an officer or enlisted member of the state guard or other state militia or military force to hold other civil offices. The proponents say that Proposition 7 would correct an oversight in the Texas Constitution by adding officers and enlisted members of the Texas State Guard and other Texas military forces to the list of offices civil officials could hold. Many civil officials are active or would like to become active in the Texas State Guard or other Texas military forces. Proposition 7 clarifies that these civil officials are allowed to hold elected office while serving in the Texas State Guard or other military forces. And there are not many folks really opposed to this. Those that are say that allowing new exceptions to the constitutional prohibition would compound problems by requiring lengthy details of exceptions. And Texas courts should determine exceptions on a case-by-case basis based on whether dual service as two offices creates conflicting loyalties. I mean, when you're a member of the Texas State Guard, basically what you're going to be doing is going down to the coast to clean up after a hurricane. That's what most of the members of the Texas Guard do. Any questions or comments? Does everybody understand what it'll do?
Number 7, you say.
Number 7, yes. Okay, Proposition 8. The constitutional amendment authorizing the state to contribute money, property, and other resources for the establishment, maintenance, and operation of veterans hospitals in this state. Those who are proponents of it say veterans have given a great deal of themselves to the benefit of the United States of America and the state of Texas. Proposition 8 would allow the state to contribute to the overall health and well-being of veterans who have served to protect our freedoms and liberties. Those who are opposed to it basically say that it would allow the state to duplicate a service that is and should continue to be provided by the federal government. To whatever extent that the federal government is providing insufficient health care to veterans, that problem should be redressed at the federal rather than the state level. So do we have any questions or comments about Proposition 8? It's basically authorizing the state to do what the federal government ought to be doing.
Yeah, so if federal government's not doing a good job taking care of vets, then we need to do it.
I would agree.
Well, I don't think there's any group in America that ought to be more protected than veterans. But on the other hand, they were veterans because they were employed by the United States government, and the United States government ought to be the one that is taking care of them. If that's insufficient, we need to lean on the federal government to get more funding for veterans, and then not put it on the backs of Texas taxpayers when it ought to be the federal government funding it. Any other questions or comments? Proposition 8.
In San Antonio, there is a outpatient physical therapy place called Center for the Intrepid. It was built about 4 years ago, totally by donations. And it's a state-of-the-art. It's there in Fort Sam Houston. But it was built on contributions.
This amendment doesn't really affect contributions. Okay.